5:30, so we will begin our November 14th study session meeting of the Board of Education. Tammy, please let the record show that all board members are present this evening, and I will lead us in the pledge. So those who are able, if you can stand, and we will say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Our next agenda item is the approval of the agenda. Our recommended action is that the board approve the agenda as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Board Member Kreis. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second from Board Member Bruner. As time will vote.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm still not logged in yet, so I don't have it in front of me.
Me either.
Okay.
The agenda items for the two board policies, those aren't consent or anything. Those will have opportunities to discuss for each of those?
You are correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we vote?
Just a call roll if we need to.
Okay. And we'll do verbal vote. Board Member Byrne?
Oh, it came up.
I'm not even in yet.
He's not logged in yet.
And Judy's not either, so.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. I got it.
But,
Wait for you to
yes,
vote.
aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
You can't hear? Okay. Well, can all board members make sure that they're...
Aye. Right.
Okay, so just as aye, no, aye,
Aye.
Aye.
and chair votes aye. The agenda is approved 6-1. Can you hear now? I'll move my mic up then. Is that better? Okay. Thank you for letting me know. We've now come to the portion of our meeting where we hear from our speakers. The Board of Education welcomes comments about the issues being discussed. The board uses this time in our meeting to listen to the public, but will not comment or engage with the public during this meeting. The board allows for up to 10 speakers per public comment period. The board chair will call on individuals in the order in which they signed up. Substitutions are not permitted. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes and will be timed by the board secretary. Comments must be acceptable for a business and family-friendly environment. Inappropriate language, gestures, or personal attacks will not be tolerated. It is inappropriate to address the board about individual students or individual staff members by name in open meetings. If you have concerns about individuals, these concerns should be addressed through the appropriate administrative supervisors, either in the schools or in the district office. If you have any materials that you would like to share, please place them on the tray next to the podium, and they'll be distributed to the board members following the meeting. We have 3 speakers this evening. Our first speaker is Laura Mullins.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to speak to you about staffing decisions that are being made right now as SPS attempts to recalibrate their finances with the loss of the ESSER funds. It's my understanding that $15 million will need to be cut before next year. From the start, SPS chose to invest much of the money into staff to support our students. These positions included mainly educators, support staff, and nurses. Many of these positions were filled by experienced staff in an effort to provide the strongest support for our students with the highest needs. At the time, the plan was to integrate the positions that proved to be beneficial into the regular budget. Since then, as of now, 92 employees of the 181 affected have been notified their job is being eliminated. When we were told this, a comment was made to the effect of, well, that's $4 million of the 15 we need to cut. It became clear these decisions were not about what's best for students or the sites, but about money. This was confirmed to me when all 49 building subs were cut, while we continue to struggle to fill these vacancies every single day. Because of this, I wanted to share some other numbers that need to be considered. During the same time frame, 37 building level administration positions were added for a total cost of $3.1 million. And 57 district level administration positions were added, totaling an additional $5.8 million. We now have 109 building administrators, 117 coordinators, 54 directors, 4 chiefs, 2 deputy superintendents in addition to the actual superintendent. All of this totaling around $23.4 million. To be completely transparent, I had to use a variety of resources to obtain these numbers, board docs from the last 3 years, salary schedules, the SPS website, etc. So my numbers should be close, but will not be perfect. Without the district providing the information I requested, in addition to navigating the shell game of titles within SPS, this proved to be a very challenging feat. As my many math teachers taught me, I will show my work and email you the spreadsheet I created with the specifics for you to verify as needed. All of this said, if the board's goal is to improve student learning, removing positions that directly impact students is not going to achieve this. In fact, we need more, not less, of these positions. We have students with aggressive behaviors who still need an individual behavior tech. We have students with learning disabilities who need the individualized attention provided by our paraprofessionals. And we have students with life-altering health conditions who need a school nurse nearby. I was told the next set of cuts are planned to go out around Thanksgiving and the final set of cuts before winter break. Please consider looking outside the classroom for your remaining money. Our teachers need more people to help them get the job done, not more people telling them how to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jasmine Allen.
Hi, thank you guys so much for your service, and thank you for listening, taking action to the needs of the Pipkin location. I'm here to talk about the discipline in regards to our training classroom. It was from the Office of Student Access and Opportunity. I know previously, before the training was axed and then brought back as the Student Access and Opportunity, it was offered to all staff. Currently, it is not all staff. The cafeteria staff, as well as paraprofessionals, did not partake in this, but prior to this, they did, and this is some relevant curriculum. I think all need to hear it, not just staff, certified staff. Moving on now, I would like to talk to you guys about a book I just read. It is called Belonging. It is The Science of Creating Connection and Bridging Divides. A great read. I will share with you guys a video because I know you guys don't have a lot of time to maybe read the book, but they were talking about the fundamental attribution error, right? So I feel like sometimes we do this as teachers, as professionals, and I think we need to be cognizant of how we are interacting with our public. Now moving on to board policy. And how we use our PLCs. I know there's a lot of tests. Like we're really big on tests. Being a teacher and a parent for the district, I wonder if we could also be looking at how are we doing with these strategies that we learned in those access, rather than just looking at test scores, right? Because sometimes when we look at those test scores, you peg our students. Like, okay, you're going to be advanced. You're going to go to remedial math. Let's look beyond the test scores and expand this training to include more than just certified staff. I'm going to read to you guys a board policy. You guys have a policy that will place the interest of the district and its students before personal interest. I was not at the last board meeting, but I did hear that you guys tabled the USDA's discrimination policy. I urge you to reconsider that, bring that back, because you guys have a duty that's in your policy, is to be an interest for all students. And to at least add and make a statement, as well as action to support our LGBTQ teachers and students, such as with relevant curriculum, because I see in here it says show an awareness of students' lives outside of school, and it relates to the curriculum in their lives, right? I've had students that come up to me when I rear my rainbow, and they've seen that I've been at the, so they know that, you know, I affirm them. You guys use the word welcome. Why can't we use the word affirm? I again, thank you for your time. I know this is a volunteer position, so thank you again for your service. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.
I'll email you the stuff I was talking about.
Thank you, Jasmine. Our next speaker is Kelly Huguenot. Sorry.
Hola, thank you for letting me speak. I am one of the ESSER positions that's been cut this year. Good news is I'm not fearful for finding another job. I have like 4 other certifications. I do this because I enjoy it. I'm here to speak out on behalf of Parkview students specifically. According to the 2021 DESE data, 12.5% of Parkview High School's population is Hispanic. Guys, that number has only grown. I guesstimate it's at least at 15% now, if not more. I know in my own classroom, at least 11%, 24 students, are Hispanic. Many are exposed to spoken Spanish at home and take Spanish 1 and 2 to learn the basics of reading and writing in the language. Many other students take the class to learn about Hispanic culture and to obtain world language credits that will help them enter the college of their choice. When my ESSER-funded position is cut in June 2024, at least 145 students will find it much harder to enter Spanish 1 and 2. The sections will be reduced, and Spanish 3, 4, and 5 will become harder to schedule. The Heritage Speaker section, which houses 17 students this year and is used to help get children to where they need to be for the seal of biliteracy, will most likely be cut. 29 have shown interest in that specific Heritage Speaker course next year. For Hispanic families and others, being able to easily access Spanish classes means being able to ultimately get the seal of biliteracy, which equates to more money per hour in jobs for those who are able to attain it. I just pulled today's data from ZipRecruiter. A bilingual post office clerk in Springfield, $18 an hour. Just a regular post office clerk, $15. That's $3. That's huge, especially in the beginning of your career. Also, for those going on to university, it means thousands of dollars in savings. Seal of biliteracy students are often able to test into higher courses, meaning much less money spent on tuition. I ask you to reconsider cutting this vital position. Please make Spanish 1 and 2 a full-time position at Parkview, the high school with the largest Hispanic population in the district, even if it's not me. The students of Parkview deserve to have the chance to be in Spanish and other world languages. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kelly. And that concludes our public comment section of our meeting. Moving on to item 3.01, contracts, agreements, change orders, and bids. This is an information item which we will vote on during our November 28th meeting. I know that Dr. Lathan has received and answered one question from a board member. Over the next 2 weeks, if there's any additional questions, be sure that we're sending those in. Moving on to new business, item 4.01, and Dr. Shaw is with us this evening to present.
Good evening. As I pull this up, pleasure to be here tonight. So it's been several months that you may recall when we had a couple different HVAC projects come to the board. One of those had one bidder, the other had 0 bidders. And so we were recognizing an area where we needed to look at accomplishing these projects a little differently. And so I've been working and talking with different performance contractors over probably the last 12 years, learning about that process. The projects that we looked at in different districts, also in Springfield, didn't make sense. But as we began to deal with this particular problem, it began to make more and more sense that we needed to strongly look at utilizing a performance contract to accomplish these particular projects. You'll also probably recall during the pandemic, we did have an indoor air quality assessment done on all of our buildings from a third party. And the 3 projects that you'll see listed in this particular item were 3 schools that did not have the optimal air quality that we needed, and so they became one of the priorities. And so as we begin to work through this process, it's been a months and months of working through. It's not just a matter of putting a bid out and getting bids for this project. We do go through, per statute, a very rigorous qualification process and bidding process. So not only did they have to submit their qualifications, but they also had to provide us with the best bid. And so that brings us to where we are this evening. And so the projects on this particular item for the agenda are Carver Middle School, Disney Elementary, and Sequiota Elementary. The budgeted amount that we had for these particular projects is in the capital projects budget. It was part of the budget you approved in June, but it was $8+ million to be able to complete these projects. Now, what you're going to see in this particular situation is that the gross cost of this to do a geothermal system is $14 million, but it also comes with the Inflation Reduction Act rebates that represent over $5.4 million, making that net cost to the district about $8.6 million. And so it fits within the budget that you all approved in June. There are specific dollars that the federal government, through the geothermal and domestic purchases, represents well over $245 billion that is available for public entities, and so we're able to take advantage of through this particular project. In comparison, we received, I believe, 6 different companies submitted qualifications, but only 2 went through the process of submitting their actual bid because there's a lot that goes into this. That bid was to do a more traditional approach at a little over $12 million that had no rebates. And so when we budgeted initially, it was roughly $8.5 million. That was to do a traditional approach, and that tells you right now how much costs have gone up for these particular projects and equipment. And so to be able to make this work within our budget, we feel really good about the geothermal aspect of this and being able to take advantage of that. So that's kind of where we are at this point. It's a traditional ask for you to approve a construction project of replacing the HVAC at these 3 schools, but getting to the end result is a little bit different. And so because of that, because our district has not entered into a performance contract, because I want the experts to be able to provide information and answer questions around geothermal systems as well as the rebates, I've asked members of Verigy to be here tonight. And so I'm going to turn the podium over to Jason Brushwood and his team to kind of walk you through this, and then we'll address whatever questions you may have at the end. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. Good evening. My name is Jason Brushwood, and I'm an account manager with Verigy. And on behalf of our organization, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to present to you all tonight. As far as what we plan on discussing this evening, let's see if I could get this to work. Is it going? There it goes. Okay. As far as what we plan on discussing, we're going to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do, and we're also, and about the what we do portion, that's going to be more geared towards performance contracting and educating the board a little bit about that process. And then we're going to tell you about how we work as an organization, and then also what we are proposing. But before I jump into the presentation, I would like to introduce our project team. Here with me this evening is Jim Bloomfelder. He is our Director of Project Development. And then we have Rory Stigman. He is our geothermal and mechanical engineer. We also have Randy Smith, who is our education consultant as well, and then John Shaw, who is our Director of Business Development. Okay, so first off, who is Verigy? Well, Verigy is an energy service company. We have been, sorry about that. We have been working with Missouri schools for over 20 years. We have offices in St. Louis, Jefferson City, Kansas City, and Springfield. We have been in Springfield for over 15 years. We have performed over 230 projects for Missouri schools, and have had and we have been in over 300 buildings. But we are one of the most experienced energy service companies in Missouri and across the United States. One of the things that sets our company apart, and one of the things that our organization is most proud of, is how well we do in taking care of our customers. Customer service is one of the pillars of our organization. And so from our executive leadership to our field staff to our office personnel, we really strive, and it's our goal, to deliver high-quality projects and then to really delight our clients. So, and and we believe that we've seen a lot of success with this vision and this approach. And we believe that is made evident by the fact, as you'll see on the slide, that 75% of our customers are repeat customers, which is one of the best in the industry. Okay, and then also, as you will see on this next slide, these are a lot of local school districts. For some reason, it keeps skipping ahead. These are a lot of local school districts that we've worked with here in Southwest Missouri. And one thing I'll point out about this slide is, like, you'll see a lot of phase 2, phase 3s, phase 4s, phase 5s, and beyond. And I think that really speaks to how well our customers enjoy working with us. Also, Verigy is a fully accredited energy service company, and we have received full accreditation from all the major accreditation firms in the United States. We also have hundreds of associations with the such as the MSBA, the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, the MSBMA, and the reason why I make that point is I really believe it just demonstrates how invested our organization is, or how much invested our organization is in Missouri schools. Okay, so what is it that Verigy does? So what do? Well, we do what is known as performance contracting. And what performance contracting is, it's really a method of procurement that's governed by the state of Missouri for school districts to procure projects that have an energy component to them. And really, performance contracting centers around energy efficiency projects. So projects that are dedicated towards energy efficiency. And the way it works in our organization is that our organization will partner with school districts and will evaluate a district's facility from an energy standpoint. And then with input from the district, we develop a facility infrastructure solutions that enhance the district's overall facility efficiency. So we specialize in developing facility improvement solutions that are most cost-effective and efficient for schools. And our solutions primarily deal with, as you can see on this slide, major components of the facility's infrastructure, such as distributed energy, electrical distribution, building automation, and lighting, water, and with regards to this project in particular, it would be the HVAC. Okay, so what are some of the benefits of performance contracting? Well, one is the risk is on Verigy. It's not on the district. We provide a guaranteed maximum price for our services. There will be no change orders. If we miss something, our count is off, the design, or we mess up on the design or the implementation, it is on us to fix that, and we cannot come back on the district for a change order. And so there will be no change orders associated with our project. And another benefit is that there's one contract, so there's one single point of accountability. And then we also deliver a turnkey product. And so we manage the project from the design phase through the implementation phase, all the way through the warranty phase of the project. Another benefit is that there's no upfront costs for us to develop. I mean, we had to pursue this project at our own risk, and so the district did not have to put up any initial funds to pursue this project. We also guarantee the energy savings. So, and the solutions we develop for these buildings are efficient solutions rather than and efficient systems rather than traditional building systems. Another benefit is that we develop these projects, and you might have heard this term before, based off of life cycle costing. And so this is where we design solutions and and we implement them, and we make sure that these solutions are being designed to provide the best value from a fiscal, longevity, and efficiency standpoint over the long term. And then also as an energy service company, we assist the district in identifying and applying for all applicable rebates that may be applied for the project. And so as you can see right at the end, at the bottom of there, it says IRA. And so I'd like to, on this next slide, just take a minute to kind of give you a little bit of information about the rebate that Dr. Shaw was referring to that would apply for this project. So, excuse me. So this particular rebate is called the IRA. The technical term for it is the IRA Investment Tax Credit. And what this is that this rebate is a federally funded rebate through the Inflation Reduction Act. And this particular rebate allows non-taxable entities, such as school districts, to receive a rebate for energy projects such as solar and geothermal. And so if I'd like to draw your attention to the chart there. If you look on the chart on the slide, you will see that this project would qualify for 30% rebate for just doing the geothermal project. This project would also qualify for an additional 10% rebate for using domestic content, or in other words, American-made products. And so on this project, SPS would be looking at a total reimbursement of 40% for the geothermal through this rebate. Now, as far as what is covered in this rebate, it's everything associated with the geothermal project. So from the design to the development of the project, to the implementation and management of the geothermal project, to the equipment and the associated infrastructure associated with this with the geothermal. The only thing that wouldn't be covered, for example, would be if you had a rooftop unit that's standalone, that's not part and not tied as part of the geothermal project, that you couldn't apply the rebate towards that individual. And on this project, we only have a couple of units like that. So, all right. Now, I'd like to just briefly talk about how we work. Here at Verigy, we believe one of the main factors that lead to a successful project is transparency and communication. And so to ensure that, we provide a full-time on-site project manager throughout the duration of the project. Our project manager will provide weekly progress meeting updates, and we'll also hold weekly coordination meetings with subcontractors and district personnel. And one of the other ways that we communicate with our customers is through our project management software platform, in which the district will have access to daily progress photos, the project schedule, project drawings, and other project-related documentation. And so just to recap about our organization, Verigy is committed to excellence in delivering high-quality projects that really delight our customers. And that is why we have one of the highest client satisfaction rates in the industry. We focus on designing solutions for what is most efficient and best, and also that provide the best long-term solutions for the district. We provide on-site project management with a team of experienced and client-centric professionals. And then we also Verigy takes responsibilities for all aspects of the project, from design through implementation, all the way through warranty. Now with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Bloomfelder, who is going to talk to you all about what we are doing. Just right there.
Well, thank you and good evening. As Jason said, my name's Jim Bloomfelder, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of what the scope of work is. So you've kind of learned a little bit about performance contracting and us, but what are we looking at? So it started with the 3 facilities. As we went through it, we identified that your issues are pretty much the same thing through all 3 of them. You've got aging mechanical systems, or HVAC. You have indoor air quality issues and comfort issues throughout them. Your systems don't allow for what I want to say is flexibility in these seasons that we're in right now. You pretty much are going to go from heating or cooling. You don't get the option to switch during the day. So you hit a certain point in the year when the temperature drops and you're going to go to heating. And now you have no flexibility. So there's a lack of comfort in most of your buildings. So again, like I said, other than the fact that the systems were a little bit different, the results are the same. So what we came up with is we looked at different options for the buildings, but we kind of ended up at the geothermal solution. And so what we're doing in the project is all of your existing HVAC will be removed and replaced with geothermal, except for a few minor spaces like gymnasiums and things like that, where we're going to put in a more traditional rooftop unit. In discussions with the district, they really didn't want a water coil on that roof. So in order to avoid that, as well as ease of maintenance, we went with a traditional rooftop unit. So not only are we putting in the geothermal then in the rest of the buildings, it's new piping, there's well fields that are going to be on the outside of the building, and then we'll be feeding all the units. There's bipolar ionization filtration in order to aid in your indoor air quality. There will be complete ventilation in the facilities, but the system also allows the flexibility to go from heating to cooling during the day. So you're not bound to just one or the other. So the systems in the morning when it's cold out, they can be heating the building. As that sun comes up and the temperature rises, now we can cool if it's necessary. So it's going to offer you that flexibility and get you that comfort that you're looking for. So here's why geothermal. So as we looked at the different options, geothermal has a life expectancy of about 25 years. In most of the systems that we've worked with other schools, we're seeing more than that. We're seeing 28, 29, 30 years out of it. The other more traditional systems have an expected life of about 15 years. So Jason talked about life cycle costs. So that's part of what goes into this. So as you're looking at cost, these other systems you're going to replace or install twice in the time frame that your geothermal is going to last. So that was part of it. The IRA played a big factor into it because you can get a more efficient system now for a cost less than some other systems or comparable to what I would say is a traditional rooftop system. So between efficiency, the flexibility and comfort we can bring, the indoor air quality improvement that we can do, and the life cycle of it, that's kind of how we ended up on geothermal. And that's kind of the end of the presentation, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this is coming for a vote to the board on November 28th. Today it's just an information item, but Dr. Shaw, did you have any follow-up? Okay.
If there's any questions?
Are there any questions from board members? Yep. Board Member McCoskey?
Yeah, if I may, on that domestic content and for American projects or product, we have a 10% rebate, right? Is there any flexibility in there that we may not be utilizing American products? Because I know we often use quite a lot of products outside of the United States. And if that would be the case, would that impact that 10%? Or would you actually absorb that if you were to use material outside other than American products? Just curiosity.
Right. No, everything we've designed around is made in America.
Period.
Period. Yeah, as far as the heat pumps themselves, the HDPE piping that is used for the well fields, all of that is made in America. So, yes.
American way. I love it.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any other? Yep.
We see, all I see here in this, I don't have a contract, but it says a gross amount of just over 14 million. But then I heard you guys say that you bear the risk, right? So So is there a contract set at 8.6 that says that's our entire, there is no risk, we pay 8.6, you guys handle the rebate, all of that?
No, the contract would be for the 14-1, then we help you file the paperwork for the rebates from the federal government.
So who bears the risk on if that rebate is not successful or is not 40%?
Well, I guess through what we know from the federal government and everything that's published, you will qualify for that 40%.
So our risk is 14 million, not 8.6.
Technically,
Yes, yeah.
Okay. What type of cost would we be looking at? We weren't presented other options. We weren't looking at multiple bids, right? So what other options did you pursue? How much more or less are we paying for this option?
Yeah, we looked at, the way the RFP was written, it allowed potential ESCOs to present what they thought was the best solution. And we had 6 companies submit their qualification, only 2 went down the entire road of going through the bid process. The bid process for providing us with a cost actually was open for 3 months, which is not normal, but we knew that it would take that kind of time for a team to put the information together. The other bid was a more traditional approach of what we've utilized in different schools, and that net amount, gross and net, because there were no rebates that it would qualify for, was over $12 million. And so with this 8.6 million option, it is the best, not only the most affordable upfront, but it's also a much better energy efficient system than we would have gotten with another particular type of system.
Okay. How does Verigy get paid on this? How's that structured? I mean, again, all we see is a $14 million number. How is that?
Sometimes people compare performance contracts to what would be a construction management at risk delivery method. We've used that on some of our schools. This is specific to energy savings for districts. And so there's an overhead and profit in place. There's obviously how all construction contracts should be set up for their general conditions. All of those things are in place. They have subcontractors under them. They provide us with one price. And just like any construction contract that has overhead and profit, there's going to be that same approach with their contract.
So it's a firm bid at $14,088,000.
That's correct.
Okay. Why now? Why? I assume.
Yeah. So
I mean, like, you don't replace a roof until it's shot. You don't replace HVAC till it's shot because you just start over a new life cycle, and you don't want to do that any earlier than you have to. And I know I heard, well, it's not quite comfortable right now, but what's?
Yeah. So I mean, we are at the end of life cycle. Carver, for example, that building is 26, 27 years old. It has the original systems. They have met their capacity. They need to be replaced.
So are we seeing that? Are we seeing that they are failing?
Mm-hmm. We are. And that was what was discovered, Kelly, in the indoor air quality assessment that we had done. We had 7 or 8 different schools, if I remember right, that the solution that was provided to us from an outside entity was, the only way you're going to fix this problem is to do a complete replacement. And so we are now down to 4 schools. These are 3 of them. The 4th one is Pipkin, and that'll be taken care of through that construction project. And so much like we've done with McGregor and Field and Wilder, all of those were in that same scenario that we had to replace those systems in order to replace the systems that were out of life cycle, but as well to provide us with the best system we possibly could right now.
I don't know what it's called, but geothermal, I assume, requires some sort of, like, I think you referenced it, some kind of like piping field.
It's called a well field. So you're going to sink wells into the ground?
So they go down, not like a septic, not around?
No.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's going to be a certain quantity of wells to meet the load of the building. So each one of the buildings, the well field's a little bit different, but they're spaced roughly on 20-foot centers. And then the depth, I believe that we have designed is 400 feet for each one of those wells, but they interconnect and then feed back into the building.
Okay.
Feed around.
Have any other districts or institutional type buildings near here with this climate use this?
Yes,
Neighboring districts?
yes.
Does it hold up under extreme circumstances, like when it was -2 for 2 weeks or a week or whatever it was?
It does very well because it's using the water from the earth. It doesn't care about the outdoor air
Right, but that's
temperature.
enough heat, even in extreme
Yes.
conditions, to.
Right, because you're still bringing water in that's, let's just say 55 degrees in the wintertime. So as opposed to using -2 with an air source heat pump, it's using something in the 55-degree range. It's still the refrigerant in the heat pump cycle, depending on how deep you want to get with this. So it's still the refrigerant doing the heating and cooling. But the water is the source, it's more or less the heat sink. It's
Okay.
absorbing or rejecting heat and allowing the refrigerant to actually heat and cool the building.
Okay.
But yes, I mean, there are a number of districts within 30 minutes of yours that are using it. And it's used in Canada and all the way down to Texas and so forth,
Okay,
so.
good. One of the slides showed I think it's a bar graph, and the one in the middle had referenced debt. Was that for this contract? Is there a debt component in this contract with Verigy?
You have so essentially what your performance contract is made up of is you have energy savings, and I believe what, Jason, you might want to help explain that as far as what you've got with debt service, but.
Yeah. So that just kind of shows you like, hey, there's going to be bills owed during that. So like before, that's kind of your utility costs. You're going to be paying for the project during the project, and then after everything is paid for, you're going to see those savings realized.
So what kind of time frame are you talking during? That's just the amount of time it takes you to complete the work, and we pay you $14 million.
Right. And then you energize the system. The system becomes
And to speak to what the debt service, Kelly, many districts would fund something like this out of a bond project, which is where it's paid for out of debt service. We fortunately have good reserves, and we have a budget that we are able to approve that will fund this out of our capital budget. So there's not going to be.
So that middle column really shouldn't be there.
Well,
for us.
it's one way that districts pay for it. I think that's what he was representing
Yeah,
on the
it
debt
is.
service side.
Okay.
But the debt service does represent bond funds.
Yeah.
If a
Yeah.
district chose to use bond, we're not using our bond funds for this.
Which actually has a benefit, because if you were using bond, it reduces your IRA by 15%.
So, and it says guaranteed energy savings. What specifically, what does guarantee mean?
Guarantee means that we will audit your building after the project's finished. We will gather a year's worth of utility data and compare it to your current utility data to ensure that what we guarantee for energy savings you're actually achieving. If not, we write you a check for that difference.
That difference would be perpetual, correct?
No, well, typically what would happen, like let's say there was a situation where we didn't meet it, we would jump back into the facility and get it to where it needs to be.
So you're going to write us a check until you fix it.
Yes,
We reinvest
yes,
in order to figure out why we're missing it.
yeah.
And part of the statute, Kelly, around performance contracting requires that there be a guaranteed energy savings in the contract.
And there's language in the contract that specifies if it's not, if there is not energy savings, then what? That language is in the agreement?
Yes.
And our legal has it right now, but we'll have all of that vetted prior to the board voting on the 28th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Just
you.
for my clarification, so using the performance contracting is going to save us money instead of doing it 3 individual HVAC system purchases and contracts with 3 different companies for the 3 different schools. By putting it into the performance contracting and doing it through this company, we're going to save funds. Is that correct? Am I understanding correctly?
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, yes.
So I have questions for Verigy and then also for Dr. Shaw. Okay, I'll start with Verigy. So I have more questions now. from what Mr. Byrne was asking. So I want to understand. So the energy savings are coming because you're looking at a kilowatt decrease. So what is that percentage that you're looking for? Is it 50%, 75%? What's your target?
Typically, for our geothermal, we typically will see close to 30%, but between 20 and 30.
Okay. So we're looking for a 20 to 30% decrease in electricity usage.
In your overall utility bill. Because we're going to go to all electric, you're going to have a reduction or a major reduction in gas, but you'll also have an efficiency gain on the electric side. So you got to look at gas and
So
electric.
overall, gas and electricity.
Correct.
Okay, my other, I did not realize we did geothermal here, so I'm assuming it's not so far down that it makes it worthwhile. So are we using the heat to create energy? We're not using the heat itself to heat. It's not like a boiler system. We're bringing the water up. We're just using that heat exchange to create electricity that then powers a more traditional system?
No, the system itself it's a heat pump. So I don't know if any of you have an air source heat pump in your home. So the difference between this and that is you have a unit that sits outside.
This one sits all the way down.
This one, all the equipment is actually inside the building. So outside with a traditional, you have a compressor and what's called a condensing section of it. With the geothermal, that compressor is sitting inside. The condenser is actually the water loop that's in the ground. So it then is pumped into the building and to each one of these units. So the heat pump then actually produces the heating or the cooling depending on the temperature.
So it's forced air product.
Yes.
It's how you're sourcing the energy for the pump.
Right, yes,
Got that. And that's where you're getting the energy savings.
correct.
Now I understand what you mean by procuring energy. So if I'm understanding this right, we're going to be asked to vote on $14 million. Okay. You had a list of districts that you've worked with in the past. Were those districts successful, all of them, in receiving the rebate? Was there a rebate available when they had their work done, or is this a new?
The IRA just became official in January of this year. Branson will be the first one that's filing for that. So they will be filing just like you would your taxes in the spring. So in the spring of '24, they will actually file the paperwork. And it's a pretty simple form, actually. I believe it's 1 page long. And it's pretty simple as to this is what we paid for the
So
geothermal.
we won't know until we're in the thick of it what happens with their rebate. Okay. Am I assuming correctly that if we're happy with this and it's successful, as we're building new buildings like Pipkin, then this is something that we'll be considering?
It's certainly something we will consider as long as the rebate stays in place, because as a federal government, when they provide dollars for rebates, they're not going to be forever.
When you
And so
said a traditional system would be, did I hear correctly, 12 million?
that was the other bid that we received, and that was to replace with, for example, VRF units, all rooftop, a lot of what we're doing in other schools. And again, that initial budget was about $8.5 million that we were provided, and so that gives you an idea how much how much HVAC equipment has gone up, and it now was over $12 million, and so this option truly is the best option.
Okay.
And I just,
Even with the 12 and 14, let's say the rebate's not there, you have twice the longevity, the 20 to 30% reduction in, okay, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, with regards to the IRA, because I know you're talking a lot about that, but the federal government has actually already set the funds aside all the way through 2024. So that would be work that's performed in '23 as well as '24. So your filing of '24 and '25. So they've already set the funds aside.
I know, the
for-
question is, if everybody else is doing this, do we get in there before the funds are
Well,
depleted?
and the way it's written, there isn't any application process or anything. If you do renewable energy, which is solar or wind or geothermal, those projects all qualify for this. And this is the first time they've ever opened it up to a public entity. It's always been a private tax credit.
Okay, thank you. And my last question has to do with slide 9. And I want to understand this. So we currently work with a company, is it Synergy? Am I remembering this right?
Synergistic.
Synergistic, pardon me, which I feel like is providing some of this, right? And I know that we have energy savings, but it does come at a cost because we have some employee unsatisfaction with, heating, cooling, lights on, off. It's not as seamless as we would like it to be. This contract only binds us with Verigy for the HVAC, or are we shifting from Synergistic? Or I'm just wondering about this slide.
No, so synergistic, the difference, synergistic focuses around behaviors. And it's about saving energy, one, while people are not in the building, but also about teaching behaviors on how we can be more cognizant of energy reduction. So this is really all of the comprehensive solutions that Verigy can provide to schools. We focused on just the HVAC piece, but they do all kinds of things from insulation to windows, building automation. All of those, building automation is part of this, but where we will see the significant savings in this particular system is based on the energy use that it will use while it's running. One thing I will mention too, that with Synergistic, not all of the systems are the same, and so we may have systems that need to run 90% of the time, because if they don't and we set them back, then they don't want to recover very well. And then we have other systems that we can set back and they can run 60 to 70% of the time and still recover when it's time for people to be in the building. So two very different things.
Okay, so of all the components that are on this slide, we're in a contract for HVAC and geothermal heating and cooling. Those are the two.
Right.
And perhaps the high-efficiency boilers and pumps, right? Because that's part of what you're bringing in.
No, we don't have to have any boilers.
Right.
Oh,
They
we don't
will
for the
be-
heat? That's right, you're just using pure air.
Yeah, and the
Okay.
building automation is
So
part
those are
of
the
it as well.
two,
And the
that-
building
okay.
automation as well. Yes.
oh, and building automation?
Yes.
Okay, and so then
We have
with,
that on all of our buildings.
okay, so then with the new buildings,
Replace the controls.
there's a possibility that more of these components may be entering into the,
Yeah,
arena.
For example, the windows that are in a new building now are so much better than the windows that are currently in Carver Middle School that are 27 years old,
thank you.
are high efficient.
Travis, I'd like to add that, just without knowing more about it, it makes me, I guess, a little bit uncomfortable that it seems like we're exposed to some risk on the 5.4 million if we are the ones responsible to go get the rebate. And maybe it's not a full 5, but, if something arises where some components outside the U.S. were used and we don't get that 10% or whatever it is, I'm not expecting an answer now, but before we vote next week, I'd love to, if you can help me ease those concerns of how we're not at risk on the 5.4 million and how we can reduce our risk exposure to that to be guaranteed that we see that for the full 40% all the way through.
Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question. You were talking about the difference sometimes between switching between heat and cool and back and forth. Are there still going to, and this is probably a very rudimentary question for you, but I don't know. Do individual classrooms have the ability to control everything, or is it all done centrally?
No, the classrooms themselves will have a thermostat where they will have, there's usually a
We have a
limit.
range. Yeah.
that
It'll be the
they-
same range that all of our schools have. But they will have that autonomy to change their particular temperature.
Okay. Well, my experience has been that sometimes the thermostats, you play with them and they don't seem to do anything, so I'm just curious. Thank you.
We hope that won't be the case with Regis.
Me too.
Any
So
other
does that mean,
questions?
sorry, does that mean that if Mrs. Jones is getting a lot of sun in her room and it's hot, she can turn on the cooling system, while somebody, Mr. Smith, who has no sun coming through and the way it's positioned, needs heat? So we can simultaneously, in two different rooms, have one heating and one cooling?
That's what's nice about the heat pump system.
Okay,
It has what's called a reversing valve in it. So it reverses and goes to a cooling mode, or it goes back to the other mode, and it allows heating. So yes, one unit on the south side can be cooling, and the unit on the north side can heat, which also makes it even more efficient because now one unit is taking heat off the loop and one's rejecting heat. So that's,
So it makes it-
again, that adds to the efficiency.
And then
For
you,
clarification, more of our schools have that capability than don't. We don't have that many systems that once you turn over to heat, they're stuck there, and vice versa. So that's not the norm. But we do have buildings like that.
and then the air quality is going to be better?
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
And then what about humidity? Is that at all going to be a factor? Is that going to be,
It will all be addressed through these systems.
so even though it's a heat pump?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. A lot of my questions have been answered already. Thanks, Kelly, Miriam. You probably said it, but what's the schedule for this?
So upon board approval, we will begin working with the team to start procuring equipment as soon as possible. There is work that they'll be able to do with the well fields prior to school being out. A big majority of the work does happen over the summer. One of the great things that we appreciate about the work and how Verigy does their work is they are able to do a lot of things without people really even realizing they're there. They take pride in starting and finishing and getting things accomplished. So these are 3 big projects. So the likelihood of getting it all taken care of by next summer, I don't know that that will happen, but it will begin immediately upon board approval.
And then as soon as they're done, we can apply for the,
Well, I
Yeah.
believe that, I don't know that they actually have to be completed. I think there's stages in which you can apply for.
oh,
those
stages,
rebates.
okay.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, there
Okay.
will be there's a portal, like, once you start the project, there's going to be a portal that the government is launching in January, in which that will kind of begin the rebate process at that point.
So it's kind of, I guess, not a pre-application, or you basically submit that you have a project going on, and that's just starting in '24.
Okay. And no, what I heard is that you won't be in the way of anything then, or any disruptions with this traffic or anything like that.
No, and we'll definitely coordinate with the district to make sure that any work we're doing is not going to interfere with the daily activities of the school.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
No further questions here.
Any other questions, board members? Okay, thank you for being here this evening and answering all of our questions. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And then if there's any other questions over the next couple weeks before our November 28th board meeting, just let Dr. Lathan know so that she can get answers from Dr. Shaw.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 4.02, there's been a board member request to vote on tabled board policies. During our last board meeting, we tabled discussions on board policies A, C, and EF. Board member Kreis has requested that we potentially bring those back up for discussion. In order to do that, I will entertain a motion from board member Kreis that we, where are we here? That we take from the table consideration of board policies A, C, and EF. Do I have that motion from you, board member Kreis?
Yes, so moved.
Okay, I have a motion from board member Kreis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from board member Thomas Tate. Moving something off of a table, there's no discussion, we just go straight into a vote. So what we'll be voting on is whether to remove it from the table so that we can continue to discuss it. So a vote in favor means that we will be discussing it. A vote against means that it remains on the table. Any questions about that? Not about the policies, but about the procedure. Okay, seeing.
So 4 means,
We're going to discuss it.
Got it.
Yep, a vote in for means that we will be discussing it. Okay, seeing no questions, we will vote. My eyes are really bad. 1, 2, 3,
There's
4.
four ayes.
4, okay. On a 4-3 vote, these policies have been removed from the table in order for the board to continue to discuss them. Board Member Kreis, since this was your motion to remove it from the board table, would you like to begin that discussion?
Do I have to move first to adopt policies A, C, and E, F as presented?
I will entertain a motion
Yes,
that
I-
the board adopt the
Yeah, I move to
policies.
Adopt policies A, C, E, F.
It's separately, it's separate.
We could do it separately.
501 and 502.
Okay, let's,
Okay.
Sorry, I had my mic off. They're 501 and 502.
okay. So, Board Member Kreis, I'll entertain a motion from you that the board adopt policy AC, which is item 5.01.
As presented, yes.
Okay, I have a motion from Board Member Kreis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Board Member Thomas Tate. Now we are available for discussion. Would you like to begin?
Sure, absolutely. So during the last meeting, due to new information shared with the board 5 minutes before our meeting started, I voted to table policies AC and EF. So all board members had the time to thoroughly assess the situation. I needed that time, especially. Since that meeting, I visited with district administrators, legal counsel, and the Missouri School Board Association. I've also conducted research into other Missouri school boards, what they've done, visited with colleagues around the state, and reviewed all correspondence provided by administration to the board. And to me, it's clear that these policies are an issue of compliance. Today, the district is out of compliance. So, first I must say, regardless of anybody's personal belief, I don't think any of us here want any student to be denied their free and reduced lunch. Second, I requested that this be added to the agenda, and I will vote to adopt this policy to bring the district into compliance, as that is my fiduciary responsibility as an elected board member.
Thank you. Any further statement? Okay.
No.
Yes, Board Member McCoskey.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your comments. Though I don't agree with those, it's just my prerogative, of course. I would say that what comes into question is similar to the Healthcare Alliance we had balloted on, and it was indicated that we were to stand together to move forward on the Healthcare Alliance as one, even though that as a member I did not vote in favor of that. But nevertheless, it's the board speaks, and as a board member, I must at least respect that and move forward. I think in this case, it's a little bit different in that we did vote on this, and we had a 3-3, and it was determined that SOGI was not going to be included with the under the anti-discrimination clause with the USDA and this policy. I still stick to that, and I think that would be what I would consider a norm, and so that in that it failed, that we should come together as a board and continue to act because the board spoke, just as we did in the Healthcare Alliance. And then I understand you went on vacation, Madam President, and you wanted to put it back on the table. So I would question again the board norm. And we did have a vote to table it indefinitely, and I'm thinking at that point that that would be another norm. And then we come to this evening and we're going to vote on this again. It's almost as though that I didn't get my way, so I'm going to vote and I'm going to vote and I'm going to vote until I can get my way. But I don't mean that in the most crudest way, I guess. I just want to say that I think that it failed the first time, and we should stick to that board norm that we are going to act and move forward together as a board, even though that some of us did not vote for it. With that said, I heard that we're out of compliance with respect, I don't agree with that, and here's why. I certainly talk to attorneys too, and I think it's my responsibility to investigate and learn what I can in order to make a decision on many of these different types of policies that we have. First off and foremost, it is not the law, and it was not appropriately inserted in the USDA regulations because the USDA failed to follow the procedure in order to make it a regulation. This is confirmed through the law of the land in the state of Missouri by the Attorney General, who had submitted communication to the board to ensure that it was not law. And to this day, I still contend that it is not law. The other aspect of this, when we talk about out of compliance, we're talking about what somebody had made the suggestion that we're not going to feed the kids and we won't get free and reduced funds from the federal government. Well, I would refer to the USDA, that the USDA themselves had specifically indicated that funds would not be withheld. It's just that they would like to see us all follow this, and that's the extent of it. So one, it's not being the law. It's confirmed by the Attorney General. And the USDA themselves had said there was never an opportunity here to withhold federal funds. The funds are to feed our children, and that is all children. If we go down this path of including SOGI, again, my concern is that we are picking out a group, and we are now beginning to discriminate against other students as well. And so, I speak strongly to this. I think many of you know how strong I feel about this, and I have faith beliefs also that we should not be leading as adults, and as a Board of Education, we should not be going down this path and leading our students down this path. We're here to help facilitate Dr. Lathan and to provide our kids in the district an education. To me, education is the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. It's not talking about sex with our children. Sex, not with our children, let me rephrase that. We should not be dealing with this at all. If a parent and their child want to go down that path, that's what they should be doing. It should not be the district engaged in that. And therefore, I appreciate you listening to my comments. I do not think to this day that I will vote for this. And so that's my statement. Thank you so very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Are there any other board member comments at this time?
Yeah, please. Mr. Kreis, I mean this totally respectfully, but I've got to echo what Mr. McCoskey said. I am so tired of this narrative that the funds are at risk. I don't know what you've found, but I don't know what more you need than the language as reported from KY3 that says specifically, and I quote, "However, this action is about ensuring everyone has access to our programs, not," is emphasized, "reducing funding." There are many districts in the state who have chosen not to adopt this as well, which we haven't really discussed that. At this point, I just don't believe it's intellectually honest to say that we are risking funds. And I'll tell you exactly why I'm bothered by it. I had a community member call me and leave a voicemail cussing me out and telling me that he thought, amongst many other things, that I should rot in hell for costing kids their lunch money. So the type of comments that President Kincaid makes to the media about how we're using kids as political pawns, in quotations, again referencing this idea that kids could potentially lose their lunch money, and then stating it again after all of this and after the USDA's words specifically say that it is emphasized not about reducing funding. Why are we still talking about that? It's not, it only serves to divide the community and cause dissension. I mean, seriously, knock it off. Like, let's be done with that. So moving on, I just believe that this is bad policy. I don't care if it came from MSBA attorneys or the USDA. This is bad policy, and I stated this at the last board meeting. Policy needs to be clear and definitive, not subjective. How can we write policy on something that I don't see we can define? And anybody that wants to speak now and tell me how many genders they think there are. Please, anybody.
If I may.
Absolutely.
Is this appropriate? Is this appropriate?
We have historically allowed every board member 10 minutes to speak, and then we'll go back around.
We're still in my time. Feel free to chime in, and I'll allow you the same opportunity.
Well, I mean, I wanted to look up SOGI just to get more of an education, and what I found that there's 72 different genders out there. That's, I mean, if we're gonna point out that we have 72 different genders, maybe we need to add 72 different genders in this policy.
My point is there even consensus amongst this board, much less society as a whole, of how many genders there are?
Is there consensus on how many races there are?
I think that could be closely or definitively arrived on.
I'm going to again encourage the board that they take 10 minutes and speak to the topic instead of...
Okay, so I'm going to just state, and feel free to correct me, that there would not be a consensus on this board of how many genders there are. Stated by, I'll leave it at that. So when it comes to setting policy, we must be clear and objective. Policy is ineffective if it's subjective. We must strive to word policies that can be clearly defined so that they can be executed. In this case, I find this policy far from that standard for the reasons I was just speaking to. It's subjective because society, much less this board, cannot agree on what gender is or how many there are. So I'm going to propose to clear that up. As evidenced by this policy coming to us 3 different times, it's clear that our board president at least clearly wants more specificity in our anti-discrimination language in this policy. So I'm going to propose, let's be more specific. So I'd like to make a motion. Which policy are we on first?
We are on policy AC.
A motion to amend policy AC. A motion to amend policy AC to include the following language under school nutrition programs is the heading after the language, the district is prohibited from discriminating on the basis of race, color, national origin, or sex. And here's where the...
To be clear, Board Member Burnt, this is your proposed amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
And here's where the amendment begins, including gender identity to include male, female, agender, and please bear with me, some of these are very difficult to pronounce. Agender, abimagender, adamasgender, aerogender, aesthetogender, affectogender, agender flux, alexagender, alias gender, amerigender, ambigender, ambineck, amicagender, androgyne, anesogender, angenital, anogender, antegender, anxiogender, apogender, apconsugender, astergender, astralgender, autogender, autogender, axogender, bigender, biogender, blurgender, boyflux, burstgender, childgender, casgender, casflux, cavusgender, sendgender, ceterogender, ceterofluid, cisgender, cloudgender, callgender, colorgender, comogender, condigender, delesiogender, demifluid, demiflux, demigender, domgender, duragender, egogender, epicene, espigender, exgender, existigender, femfluid, femgender, fluid flux, gemigender, gender blank, gender flow, gender fluid, gender fuzz, gender flux, gender puck, gender queer, gender witched, girl flux, healed gender, mirror gender, omnigender, and sexual orientation to include allosexual, allosexism, androsexual, asexual, aromantic, autosexual, autoromantic, bicurious, bisexual, biromantic, closeted, coming out, cupiosexual, demisexual, demiromantic, fluid, gay, gray sexual, gray romantic, gynosexual, heterosexual, homosexual, lesbian, LGBTQIA+, libidoist asexual, monosexual, non-libidoist asexual, omnisexual, pansexual, panromantic, polysexual, homosexual, passing, queer, questioning, romantic attraction, romantic orientation, sapiosexual, sexual attraction, sex averse, sex favorable, sex indifferent, sexual orientation or sexuality, sex repulsed, scoliosexual, spectrosexual, and straight. Disability, age, or reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity in any program or activity conducted or funded by the USDA.
Okay, there's been a motion that the board adopt the policy, or that this amendment be adopted. Do I have a second to Board Member Burns' motion?
Though I don't like
Do I have a
that.
second to Board Member Burns' motion?
I do. I will second that
A
motion.
second from Board Member McCoskey for the amendment.
Could you please reread
Do I
it?
have any, what?
No.
Do I have?
Asked
He
to
asked me
reread
to
it.
read it. Do I have any discussion on the amendment? And if there is no discussion, we'll move into a vote on the amendment.
I have a discussion on the amendment.
Board Member Thomas Tate.
As a person who studies linguistics, for the purpose of succinctness, gender identity, and sexual orientation includes all of those things, which is why we put those words in. Just like for disability, we don't list all of the disabilities that are available, nor do we list all of the races that are available, nor do we list all the colors that are available, nor do we list all of the national origins that they're available, because they consume all of those things. And so for succinctness purposes, this does not work for me.
Do I have any further discussion on Board Member Burns' proposed amendment?
I would like to say that all of those things that you just listed, a finite list could be created.
Could not.
Whereas in this case.
Could not.
And again, I'm going to
Whereas
ask
in-
that board members allow all board members to give a 10-minute presentation, and then we can circle back around if there's additional comments.
Whereas in this case, a list could not be formed today, and if it could, it will change tomorrow.
Do I have any further discussion on Board Member Burns' amendment, proposed amendment?
I just want to go back and say that I disagree with that. There could not be a succinct list of disabilities or even race or even color or religion. There's not a succinct list.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will take a vote on Board Member Burns' proposed amendment. I'm guessing we'll have to take a verbal vote, is that correct? Yes. So we'll start with Board Member Byrne. A vote in favor adopts your proposed amendment.
Aye.
No.
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 No. On a vote of 5-2, the proposed amendment fails. Going back to board policy, proposed board policy AC, are there any further comments or questions at this time?
I have a comment for policy AC. Actually, it involves both. I also did my research and attended some sessions at MSBA as well as done my own research online. And there were 22 AGs who did sue regarding this USDA policy, and the preliminary injunction was denied. The motion was dismissed and granted was not granted for any of them, and there was no appeal from any of the AGs. The judge in the case said no matter how many times plaintiff states insist otherwise, protecting poor people's access to the benefits of food stamps and other resources does nothing to reinforce access to school restrooms. It has nothing to do. There's no relationship between conversations that we're having with kids about sexual orientation and gender and creating a policy that is in compliance with the USDA. By making a policy that's in compliance does not mean that we're now going to have discussions with kids about their sexual orientations or have anything to do with restrooms or surgeries or medications or anything else. They're completely separate issues. They have nothing to do with each other.
Any further comments or questions from board members? Board Member
A
Burner?
comment. I too had the privilege of attending the statewide MSBA conference a couple of weeks ago. And because this policy and our recent board votes were on my mind, I did have an opportunity to visit one-on-one with one of the MSBA attorneys. And I specifically asked what other districts were doing, where did you get this language? And I was assured by her that the team of attorneys at MSBA put this language together in order to be in compliance. It's as simple or as complicated as that, depending upon how you want to look at it. What she did assure me, and I think that the public needs to know, is that an audit by the USDA would be very time-consuming and very costly in terms of manpower. And so whether or not you agree that $7 million is at risk or not, putting us in a position where we would be out of compliance, to me, is not worth the risk. I am not an attorney. We rely on MSBA to give us guidance. They have done that. And I think Board Member Christ used the term fiduciary responsibility, and I absolutely agree with that. That's what we're elected to do. My position on this has not wavered. At one of the previous meetings when we voted on this, I made the comment that, should regulations change depending upon who's in power in Washington, D.C. and gives us these regulations, okay, then we'll have to modify it should that happen. I just think it's important that we follow the regulations as given. I go to the airport and I don't want to take off my shoes, but I take off my shoes because that's the regulation. You comply with the federal government. I think that's how we do business. And we're a public entity, and whether or not you think the $7 million is at risk, I would hope not. I would hope that you're correct. But what I do know is that an audit would be very, very expensive for our district, and it would also be very time-consuming and hopefully wouldn't result in anything else. That's it for me.
Any further discussion?
Yes. I'm not sure what the history of the USDA auditing us is, but I know the history of us being sued, and the ambiguity of this policy increases the likelihood that we get sued. So if you want to talk about fiduciary responsibility, there you go. We had a great solution last meeting, which was to table this, and there's no reason that this shouldn't just be left tabled. That exposes us to the least amount of risk fiduciarily, if that's a word.
Okay, any further discussion? Yep.
I would like to add that, when I came to the Board of Education, I thought would be focused on ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, and obviously we're not. I do think that this is the God's honest truth. I get up every day, and I think as adults push this onto our children, I think it's irresponsible, for one. And number two, I think about the child that does get turned down this path of SOGI, that may be a child that will contemplate suicide sometime down the road. Not only that, I think about the child that did commit suicide. I don't want to be a part of that. And I know that you all don't want to be part of that, but that's my point of view, is we should not be involved with this. I want to know what it's going to take, that we are going to build the skill set of our children within the school system that moves the mark in math on the average academically, not 1 point, not 2 points, but 5 points in a year. That's where we ought to be headed. Or whether it be English language arts, or whatever the case may be. That's what our focus needs to be on, not this SOGI and adding this to sex under this anti-discrimination policy. So that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you so very much. I appreciate the time.
Any further discussion? Yes.
I also had the opportunity to attend the MSBA conference, and I had the opportunity to meet with, or not meet with, but speak with several superintendents and board leaders who were all MSBA members. They were attending the MSBA conference after all. And I was surprised that half the people that I asked either had no knowledge of this MSBA recommendations, I'm putting that in quotes, or chose not to put that on their agenda. So there were board members whose board presidents or superintendents had not recommended it, it just did not come before them, and that includes regional boards. So I guess what I'm saying, if USJ is coming for an audit, there's a whole heck of a lot of schools in Missouri. And that was interesting for me to find out. I am also likewise tired of what I consider to be a systematic misinformation campaign on the part of our board leadership. I'm still a proponent of pushing back to MSBA a blanket statement with respect to all our policies that we make every effort to be in compliance with the law. And then we'll leave that to the lawmakers. I think that would be, from a fiduciary standpoint, the most responsible thing to do. I also, I'll stop there for now.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we add, after the words "on the basis of," that we add the word religion.
There's been a motion to include the word religion in this board policy.
Specifically, it would be the first one after the words "on the basis of."
I would second that motion.
And a second.
We're on EF, right?
No, we are on AC.
Oh, we're going backwards.
Can you give me just a moment?
Is there any reason this conversation can't happen in the microphone?
I'm asking if there's a sunshine issue with notice to the public. Your previous amendment, I would say, we could anticipate that that amendment would fall in line with sexual orientation and gender identity. I'm concerned that religion falls outside of what the public had been given notice of.
The public has to get notice that this board policy is up for discussion. The details of many issues change.
And that's what I'm trying
No,
to
but-
determine.
If you'd like time to deliberate or to post it, we can table it again.
Give me just okay. All right, I'll entertain the motion. I've got a motion from Board Member Byrne and a second from Board Member McCoskey. Do I have any discussion on the proposed amendment?
I have a discussion. This particular non-discrimination policy is the USDA's that we are changing language in order to be compliant with theirs. We have our own non-discrimination statement, and religion is in our non-discrimination statement already.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
That was going to be my question. Where else do we have religion? Where is it covered with this?
Would you like to? It's my understanding that it is covered in our board policies.
You see, it would be so much simpler to just scrap all this and go back to, we will follow the law.
Perhaps you could take that up with the USDA, and I'll make my statement now with regard to that. I know that we have a pending proposed amendment, but we'll just vote on the amendment, and then I'll make my statement as it relates to the policy in general, if that's all right.
I believe that would be correct procedurally.
Okay. There's been a proposed amendment by Board Member Burns, seconded by Board Member McCoskey, to include the term religion after on the basis of. At this time, we will make a vote on that amendment.
Aye.
No.
Can you read the policy in its amended form, please? I'm just ensuring, so that's the only place that it would be added.
To confirm, Board Member Byrne, it's on the,
Specifically, the paragraph under school nutrition programs, it would read, "The district is prohibited from discriminating on the basis of religion, race, color, national origin, sex, including gender identity and sexual orientation, disability, age, etc."
I apologize, Board
Yeah,
Member
it was
Miriam.
already
And this
on
is
there.
definition, okay.
I
No,
apologize.
I'm trying to find.
Can I have that back? 'Cause it's
Oh,
incorrect.
sure.
Thank you.
Was that not correct?
Yeah, it's in the wrong spot.
So Board Member Byrne, you're talking about underneath school nutrition
Nutrition
programs.
Yes.
To include
Just the second page.
the second, thank you.
Right there.
So you're not asking for it to be added under the general rule?
It's already on the agenda.
It's already there.
It is?
Yes.
I see, thank you.
Does that change either of your votes?
No.
Okay. Board Member Muhammad Khani, are you ready to vote?
Yes. Yes on the vote.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Price?
So all we're doing is adding the word religion. Is what I'm trying-
To their
Your-
policy.
Your mic is on.
Right.
To the school nutrition program portion. It is generally, correct me if I'm wrong, it is generally included as a blanket non-discrimination
say no.
statement. Sorry, that was a no?
No.
Yes.
Well, I got lost in some of that.
Okay.
But, based on the fact that we have religion covered with board policy, which I think we all would agree that that's absolutely necessary, I'll vote no to add it here.
Okay. And for the same reasons as my fellow no voters, I will also vote no. The amendment fails 4-3. Moving back to proposed board policy AC, board policy AC. I stand by my statements that I made last board meeting. There was no indication when I took a trip that had been planned for over a year that a board member would vote down a policy that's required by the federal government. As I indicated last time, I've talked with other board members about all 7 of us should have a equal say, and that's why it was added to the agenda last time, so that we could all have an equal vote. It was tabled indefinitely, and one of the board members who voted to table it asked for it to come off of the table. So procedurally, I don't see any issues with what has occurred so far. I'm not aware of any districts voting down this proposed policy. And I've had an opportunity, now that we've had some time, not during a meeting while I'm trying to run a meeting, being notified of a letter for which the Attorney General had plenty of time to notify us prior to us starting our meeting. I've had an opportunity to read the 35-page court case that he quoted in that letter, and it is, as Board Member Thomas Tate indicated, the Attorneys General all lost on that court case. What was particularly informative to me was the judge's opinion at the end said that this case about adding gender identity and sexual orientation is about food stamps and nutrition education. And I'll come back to that in a minute. As I briefly indicated, it sounds like the attorneys general and perhaps some of the board members are taking an issue with what the USDA has done. We cannot fix the USDA's regulations. Board Member Muhammad Khani, you said that we should take every effort to be in compliance with the law and let the lawmakers make the law. Well, the lawmakers have made the law, and if we don't like it, we need to contact those lawmakers.
There are no lawmakers.
So the judge in this
Congress is
particular-
lawmakers.
And then regulations, they pass along the authority to make regulations such as removing your shoes when you go to the airport. The judge in this particular case said, again, this case is about food stamps and nutrition education, not bathrooms, sports teams, free speech, or religious exercise. It's about whether in administering food benefits, the plaintiff states, i.e. the attorneys general, can ignore a federal statute and discriminate against poor people. Plaintiff states, or the attorneys general, insistence to the contrary is no more than an invitation to join a political discussion untethered to applicable statutes and precedent. The court will instead simply apply the law. The court's task was to determine whether Title IX and the FNA protect people's access to federally funded food assistance benefits and nutrition education. And the answer is clear. States cannot discriminate based on gender identity and sexual orientation in the administration of these benefits. For the reason that this federal judge found that the attorneys general statements should be dismissed, the cases were in fact dismissed, for the reason that we have a duty to comply with statutory regulations, and for the fact that I don't want our district to go through an audit and cost more money for an audit, I will be voting in favor of these policies. Is there any further discussion, or are we ready to take a vote on Board Policy AC?
Call the vote.
Wait. I've only spoken once, and I'm sorry that I interrupted you. I would say that I agree with what you just read. But the difference is we are not discriminating. This isn't about discrimination or not. This is about a choice of words and being coerced by a misunderstanding on your part on what constitutes law. You had previously stated that Congress had gone after highway funds, but that is because it was the law that was enacted by Congress. And because the people's representatives in Congress had voted to pass that measure, and it was an act, I do not recall the name of the act, that was the law, and Congress therefore had the authority to pursue those measures. And had this been voted on in the People's House and becomes a law/act, then by all means, all branches of government have the authority to pursue measures to ensure that laws are complied with.
Thank you. If you'd like some additional information about following laws versus regulations, I'd be happy to sit down with you and have that discussion.
Lovely.
At this time, is there any further discussion on board policy AC?
I call the
Seeing-
vote.
Seeing none, we will take a vote. A vote in favor adopts the board policy as presented. On a vote of 4-3, board policy AC as presented passes. Moving on to item 5.02, which is board policy EF. I'll entertain a motion from Board Member Christ that the board adopt the policy as presented.
Yeah, so moved.
I have a motion from Board Member Christ. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Board Member Thomas Tate. Is there any further discussion that has not been had yet that would change anybody's vote on this particular policy? Seeing that.
Yes.
Oh,
I'd like to state that what we're talking about here is not trying to change the USDA. What we're talking about is our policy. And to reiterate what Dr. Muhammad Khani said, we are not discriminating. We will not discriminate. If that is the guidance that's been pressed down, even if it wasn't the guidance, we will not discriminate. This is our policy to set. We are not changing the USDA. We are just establishing the language in our policy. We don't need to change the USDA. We just need to set our policy.
any further discussion?
If I could, please.
Go ahead.
I would concur with what Board Member Byrne had just indicated. This is our policy. And I just want to say one more time, we are adults leading these kids. And these kids will now, because of this, be contemplating the possibility of going through some gender affirmation. And when that happens, the statistics and the data out there that always gets presented to the board is they have a high suicide rate. And so by condoning this language, I think it has the propensity to lead another child to consider suicide and actually accomplish that task. And so I'll say no more. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, if I could say one thing. First of all, I will never understand how this is leading kids down the path they're pushing this on kids. I will never understand this. This is just language in a policy. It's not pushing anything. And I want to say, concerning fiduciary responsibility, I know the USDA isn't going to cut off funding, isn't going to cut off the $7.1 million. It's the being out of compliance, the risk of an audit. As Board Member Bruner said, that can be very costly. And it'll take administration or people out of the buildings to comply with this audit when they should be in the buildings teaching our children the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that on the first page where this version I'm looking at strikes his or her and replaces it with their respective, I would like to leave that as the original. So the motion would read to amend this version to say the food service program in his or her school.
Okay, there's been a motion from Board Member Byrne on the fourth paragraph where it's been struck to say his or her and replaced with their respective, to amend it so that it remains as his or her and removes their respective.
I'll second that motion.
I have a second from Board Member McCoskey. Is there any discussion on the proposed amendment?
While I've stated before that gender-neutral language is allowable in the English language, it has been present for a very long time. This is not a hill that I'm willing to die on. So, hey, I'll support this for the sake of joining forces and getting something done.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a verbal vote on the amendment. Board Member Byrne?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
No. Okay, motion passes 5-2. Is there any further discussion on Board Policy EF as amended?
I would like to make an amendment.
Okay,
This is a very brief policy, and I do think it would be relevant the only non-discrimination statement is unique to this paragraph. And I am not seeing religion in there, but I do see national origin. I think it's odd that the language is different in every policy we have. I would like to make an amendment to add the word religion.
where would you like to add the word religion?
Well, I'm looking, it says race, color, national origin, so those seem related. Perhaps right after that.
Right after national origin?
Yes.
Okay, there's been a motion from Board Member Mohammed Khani to make an amendment under the non-discrimination statement and complaint process so that it reads the basis of race, color, national origin, religion.
Second.
Second from Board Member Byrne. Is there any discussion on this?
I'd like to state again that this is our attempt at updating our language within the within the policy regarding food services, based on the changes that USDA has required in their policy. We have our own non-discrimination, harassment and retaliation policy. That part was just for the purpose, I believe, of food services, not with regards to our overall language.
Any further discussion?
I'd like to reiterate that this is our policy, not the USDA's policy.
The
and
portion that
we-
we're altering is.
It's
It's
their
still our
language.
policy.
Again, this is the crux of the problem. It's their language forced down to be implemented in our policy under the threat of potential audit, apparently. This is our policy. We can make it as we wish. And it sounds like if they wanted to include this, I don't know what their problem would be with us adding additional provisions. If their concern was to add sexual orientation and gender identity, we're doing that. We're just adding something in addition. I don't know how that would make us out of compliance with the USDA, and it is still our policy. So it's up to this board to decide our policy.
It is there on general rule. It says that we will not discriminate on the basis of students of other basis of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, ancestry, disability, age, genetic information, or any other characteristic protected by law. That's in our policy.
In board policy, she's referencing Board Policy AC, which is our general rule against discrimination, harassment, and retaliation.
Okay.
My amendment was for policy EF.
I understand
Okay,
that,
yeah,
but
and
that's what she was
I
referencing.
just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
I understand that.
Okay, any further discussion on the proposed amendment?
Board Member Mahad Makani, can you tell me again where you're proposing a change? I was cruising down through here and I think I got lost in it somewhere. What paragraph are you referencing?
First page, last segment, it would read, "The district is prohibited from discriminating on the basis of race, color, national origin, religion, sex, etc."
And you're on Board Policy EF?
I'm on board policy
On that,
EF.
yep, on that first page, go all the way down to the bottom. It says non-discrimination statement and complaint process.
I see
and there's-
that.
Yep, and there's red and green.
Got it?
That green where it says the district is prohibited.
Got it?
And then at the top of page 2, she would add religion right after
Got it.
national origin.
Got
Yep,
it. Thank you.
Which is just what we voted on.
That's correct.
correct.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, there was a proposed amendment on board policy AC to add that same language, which failed because of the general rule that the district has that we will not discriminate on the basis of religion.
But that general rule was in that policy. As Dr. Muhammad Khani stated, that rule is not in this policy, which is a separate policy.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I would like to clarify that we vote, and I would appreciate you not explaining why a vote fails or doesn't fail. You said it didn't pass because. I think we should just stick with voting and you not interpreting everyone's vote.
Thank you for your feedback. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll be voting on the proposed amendment. A vote in favor would add the term religion.
Aye.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
No. On 4-3, the vote fails. Is there any further discussion on board policy EF as amended?
I'd like to call the question for the original vote.
Okay, there's
I
one.
have not had an opportunity to speak on the policy. Are we back to the original policy, correct?
We are back to the original policy. There has been a motion to call the question.
Call to vote, you mean?
To previous question, that does require a second and then a 2/3 vote. I'm going to entertain the motion if there is a second from Board Member Thomas Tate because these
Is-
policies are
A
nearly
second
identical.
to what? To what motion?
I am looking for a second to Board Member Thomas Tate's motion to call the question or close debate on this.
I have not had a 10-minute allotment.
Yes, I understand that, but if 2/3 of the vote would like to call the question and move this to a
And no
vote,
one
we
has
will.
seconded, so continue, Miriam.
I'm sorry, what?
Continue, no one has seconded.
At this time, is there a second? Seeing none, we will move forward with continued debate. Board Member Mohammed Khani, you have the floor.
Thank you. And before I speak, I would like you to not ask me to speak to the topic, because I think who determines the relevance of a topic is that member that is speaking.
That is hilarious to me. Sorry.
Okay. Mr. Kreis, I am genuinely perplexed at what you are trying to accomplish here. And I truly want to be on the same page in this chapter, in the book that we are all in, right? I'm going to go back a little bit. And, you know, I thought it was interesting when I read about our agenda in the paper before it is posted for the stakeholders according to the Open Meetings and Records Act. And then I find that I'm reading about how you are going to vote in tonight's meeting, again in the paper. I don't like it because it's to me, it's starting to feel like welcome to the Springfield School Board show. I really do not care for this. I understand that we are all coming together with this common purpose. We are elected public servants, we are volunteers, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We gather here so that we can conduct the business of the district that is necessary so that we can further the education of the students in the best way that we know how, right? And so to that end, and also to explain my negative vote on the agenda, I want to say that I am, as one board member, extremely disappointed in this agenda that you have put before us because it is sparse, considering the myriad of challenges that we face, that our district faces, that our staff face, and that we are trying to work through. I don't know, maybe we have another impromptu presentation from the superintendent on our, like last time, on our number one obstacle, right? The number one trending topic is discipline, so maybe we have another presentation. But as far as I'm looking at this agenda right now, there is nothing else left. And so compared to 2.5 years' worth of agendas, this is a pretty sparse agenda. There's really essentially hardly anything on it. So I would like to take this time to ask, and I can follow this up in an email to both of you. I would like to take this time to ask that when we have agendas such as this one, where they're not stacked very heavy, that our board leadership include some informal board discussions. Now, these do not require a presentation from district leadership. This is just an opportunity for us to come together and talk and dream and envision a better, brighter future for our students. An opportunity for us to inspire our staff. We can dream big. And of course, there'll be district leadership here to tell us what will work and what won't work, what is possible in the near future, what is not possible, what can we think to the future, in the distant future. What I don't like what's happening is that we're last to know of a lot of things. And I think I'd like to get ahead of those conversations. And the place to do it is at this table in this room. So in the future, if I may respectfully request, if there's ever any opportunity, can you please add the following topics in whatever order it pleases you? Discipline, technology. I like to revisit that topic because, and I can reserve my comments for at the end, where I feel that as one board member making a request, I was shortchanged. Curriculum. And now that we are just hearing about all these position cuts, I don't know, what was it, 9, 4, 15 million? These are big numbers. Are we going to talk about this? So let's add budget. So I'm going to rewrap that again. Discipline, technology, curriculum, and budget. Again, in whatever order that pleases you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on Board Policy EF? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote.
Woo.
And just to clarify, the motion is that the board adopt the policy as amended with Board Member Burns' amendment of his, her, and their.
That's what this one is
Oh,
for?
wait, can we go back?
Let's back up. Okay. There was an amendment made on EF that passed to change the language from their back to his or her. So we are voting
We
on,
did that orally.
we did that.
we voted on the amendment. Now we're going to vote on the policy as we've amended it. Okay.
Include the
So we're,
sexual orientation as well.
correct. The
As well as
only
the digital.
change, if a vote in favor is to adopt policy EF as you've had in your board packet for a while, with a minor change of removing their and adding his or her. We all agreed to that amendment, so however it's to adopt the policy. I shouldn't have said anything.
That's okay. So the only thing is we're changing, the 5-2 vote was to go to his and her rather than their.
Yep.
And that's done.
Yep.
So now that's part of it. So if we vote, got it,
Now are we
Thank
going
you.
to take this policy and adopt it
as amended,
as amended?
got it.
Did you vote?
I did.
It logged me out. Okay. Board policy EF as amended passes. 4-3. Moving on, right now there are no change orders and agreements, so we'll move on to item 7.01, superintendent's update.
Good evening, board members.
Excuse me, I'm going to take a break.
Okay, do you want to take a break or keep moving?
Keep going. We just concluded our first quarter. Just a thank you to our parents, students, staff members for supporting our attendance incentive around increasing our attendance. We completed the first quarter at attendance rate of 93.2%. So thank you again. SPS University will be held this Thursday, November 16th at Glendale High School. We'll start at 5:30 with dinner and a community resource fair, and then we'll move into our general session and then breakout sessions. Please join us on Thursday, November 15th at Glendale High School, November 16th at Glendale High School. The application window is open for choice. Transitional transfers for 5th and 8th grade students, GO-CAPS for 10th and 11th grade students. And so just a reminder, please get those applications completed. Also, as a reminder, board members, this past week in your weekly update, we summarized actually our discussions over the past almost 2.5 years as it relates to ESSER from the beginning of the inception of receiving those dollars in 2021 up until this point. And so that information was summarized again, just so everything was located in one location. We included last January during our budget discussions when we shared with you the budget spreadsheet and our forecast for the next 5 years of the decisions that we would need to make as a district over the next several years. And so just want to take you back to that January 1st meeting when we provided those updates and throughout those budget updates last spring. Thank you again. Wishing everyone a great Thanksgiving break. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 8.01, board comments. Are there any comments from our board members?
I'll make a few comments. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Khani. I'll reiterate what her request, especially when we have sparse agendas. There is a lot that we could touch on and discuss, and I would appeal to her list that she gave. And that would be an opportunity to get back to what is important and impactful in our classrooms. There's been a lot of discussion, which of course I've taken part in these last 3 meetings around these 2 policies, but I would say that I would have been happy, obviously, if those policies were never put on the agenda. Were I president, it would have never been on the agenda. And the time that we've wasted, these last 3 meetings, it would not have happened. So yes, I agree. We should take every opportunity we can to have impactful and meaningful discussions that will impact the classrooms. And there's a lot to talk about. And I would say not necessarily just when we have a sparse agenda. I'm looking forward to the opportunity at Glendale Thursday, I believe, for SPS University to interact with the public. I believe there's 4 of our members that'll do so and be able to take questions, which is a really awesome opportunity because that's not the format that we provide here as we're trying to conduct business. We don't engage with the public, but I don't know exactly what this format's going to be on Thursday, but I think it's a slightly different format that'll allow for more engagement and seeking out more opportunities like that. In my 1.5 years of board service, this is the first time this has happened, and I look forward to how it goes and hopefully look for more opportunities to do expanded versions of that.
Thank you. Any other board comments? Yeah.
I have a couple of things I wanted to comment on to my colleagues. I know many of us have been going on school visits, and we're probably all, as I have been, in awe of the dedication I've seen in our schools. It's certainly been an energy booster. I think I got like 26 hugs today, and it fed my soul. On to my second comment. At the Missouri School Board Conference that we all attended, it was a tremendous learning opportunity. By attending sessions, making connections and seeing how people do things differently and how they do them the same, and using other districts and other board members as a sounding board. But we also had an opportunity to go around and check out the vendors. I don't know if you guys had that opportunity. And I have received multiple emails at this point from vendor that goes by Yonder. And so what I will do is forward that email to the board secretary and have her forward to you all some information. And this has to do with cell phone free schools. And so Yonder is the sort of packaging that is used to insert the cell phones. And I want to say, was it Mr. Byrne? It was you when I was basically like, how many questions did I ask that guy? It was like he was drinking out of a fire hose. I just bombarded him with a whole bunch of questions. And so that was seen as interest. And he's emailed me. So I'd like to forward that and see if the board would like to move in the direction of getting a presentation from this company and see if that's something we'd like to consider as we look for next year's budget. This is the time and this is the place to have these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did appreciate the opportunity to attend MSBA and got to spend some more time with some of you, which was interesting to me and rewarding, quite frankly. But I would like to take just a couple of minutes to thank Dr. Lathan for providing us that opportunity. I was in a session with Board Member Byrne and Stephen Hall and Dr. Lathan, and it was absolutely a grand slam home run. It was standing room only. People were just wanting more of what they had to share. And I was very, very proud to be just one of 7 representatives for Springfield Public Schools. So that was a highlight for me, and I even learned a few things in there of things we were doing that I didn't know. So that's all very good. I also want to thank the people sitting behind me back here who sit with us every single month, sometimes twice a month. And I would applaud every one of you for sticking with us and working hard and doing the heavy lift that you have to do in your jobs every single day. It is not unnoticed. It is not unnoticed. And when I say heavy lift, that's a euphemism for what you're getting done. You are moving mountains. And I thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Any further board comments? Just make a brief comment. I think all board members are aware that there was an additional agenda item that we had hoped would be on the agenda that hopefully will be on the agenda next month. So as far as the sparse agenda, I think that doesn't happen very often. With that being said, just a reminder that this is not the board president's agenda. This is not the board vice president's agenda. The very first action that we take during every board meeting is the approval of the agenda. And I hope that yes, I hear what you all are saying with regard to these other items here. Yes, please put that in writing, just like I've requested to other board members. But thank you for that feedback.
It is, I don't feel that it is fair. I considered making a motion to add that, but I don't think it's fair to my colleagues to put something in last minute and expect a meaningful, effective dialogue without having prior notice.
I guess I would just appreciate this feedback about the sparse agenda to come before we sit down at the board table. But I hear what you're saying, and thank you for that feedback. I also just want to comment, I think it's rare that all 7 board members attend the MSBA meeting in Kansas City, so I'm really proud of our board for all 7 of us being up there. Since we can't talk about board stuff, it's nice to get to know people on a personal level, and learn more about our outside interests and things that keep us busy when we're not sitting at this board table. So thank you to each one of you, because I know that you took time away from your family and your lives to attend that. So, okay. Moving on, upcoming meetings. Our next board meeting will be November 28th, and that will be our regular board meeting. Of course, Board Member Byrne already referenced SPS University this Thursday. So, okay, at this time, I will entertain a motion that we adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Motion from Board Member Thomas Tate, second from Board Member Kreis. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will vote. That's fine. Seeing no objections, it's a 7.